My name is Alicia Albrechtsen from Pneumatic Addict, and I am going to show you how we built a modern pergola in just one weekend. Let's go!
This video is sponsored by Zen Pergolas.
We have a huge backyard. A couple of years ago, you guys watched us put in this horizontal wood fence to divide the back half of the backyard and the front, more usable portion. The back half we refer to as the junkyard, and that's where Bryce keeps all of his auto project stuff. The goal is to turn the front half of the backyard into, just our regular recreation space that we enjoy as a family. We've been in the house for 5 years now. We knew we weren't going to tackle the landscape right away, mostly because of cost, but admittedly, one of the things that's been holding me back as well is I just feel overwhelmed by the amount of empty space. We have to be very conservative with water here in the desert, so just filling this entire quarter-acre space with grass and plants would be expensive and inefficient. The plan is to build a 20-foot wide by 10-foot deep pergola.
First thing we had to do was mark the location and prepare for concrete footings. We drove stakes outside the perimeter and used mason line to designate where the entire pad of the pergola would sit. Next, we began the very unfun task of digging for the foundations. Luckily, we designed the footings to be wide, not deep, but you should look up the term caliche if you've never dug in the desert soil before. My husband Bryce happens to be a structural engineer, and he calculated that 4-inch thick foundations would be more than enough for our application. So I went into the shop and nailed together 2x4 forms. I prefer to use nails over screws when I'm making concrete forms because it's so much easier to remove them in tight spaces. Once the concrete forms were in place, we triple-checked our measurements, and then we could begin pouring the concrete.
If this is the first time you've watched a Pneumatic Addict video, I want to say welcome. I'm glad you're here. Take a second to make sure you hit that subscribe button and bell down below. That way you'll never miss one of my DIY projects. It is concrete time. Thankfully, we bought an inexpensive concrete mixer a couple of years ago when we were putting in the footings for our fence. But it will only handle 2 bags at a time. So we're gonna have to mix a couple of times, which means we're gonna have to move quickly. We want our mix as homogeneous as possible, and then we've got to screed it and finish it and all that stuff, all before the sun sets.
We've poured a lot of concrete over the years, and it gets easier with a little bit of practice. Some of the tips I have learned are to, 1, make sure you really agitate the concrete well. This will help ensure proper compaction and bring the cream to the top so you can get a better finish when you use a trowel. And my second tip is to make sure you wait long enough to begin troweling. You want the top almost dry, but still wet enough to show a fingerprint.
Foundations are poured, and we are ready to start laying pavers to create the floor of our pergola area. We're using really heavy, large 24 by 24 by 2-inch thick pavers. In order to create a bed for those heavy pavers to set and so we can level them, we're going to need to spread a lot of sand about 1 inch thick. However, we need a way to contain the sand so it doesn't just spread infinitely out the side. So to contain the sand, we are going to be using this plastic landscape edging. It's designed to be placed directly on the ground and then held in place using 6-inch nails. I'm pretty sure it's made out of ABS, which is more or less plastic. Plastic doesn't usually hold up in Arizona summers very well, so we're gonna see how it goes.
We decided to upgrade to 6-inch galvanized nails instead of the nylon stakes that are recommended to use with the edging, since, well, you've seen our dirt. We ended up using about 32 cubic feet of paver sand to fill in the 20 by 10 foot space.
We need to screed our sand. The goal is to get it as flat and uniform as possible, and we want it about 2 inches down from the top of our concrete foundations to account for those 2-inch pavers. To help with the uniformity, I made this, a big T-shaped screed with a 2-inch piece of wood on the bottom that we will slide across the top of our foundations, and that will hopefully give us 2 inches of space all across the whole pad.
I used Google SketchUp, which is a 3D modeling software, to help me determine how much space I needed between the pavers, which was 4 inches. I simply cut a pair of 2x4 blocks to use as spacers as we started to lay the pavers against one another.
We are now currently spreading marble chips, basically gravel, in between all the pavers. Not only will this fill in those dips so you can walk across an even surface, but it will also help lock the pavers in place so they can't shift or move when you're, I don't know, doing whatever you do on pavers. We decided it's going to be a lot easier to apply our stain to all of our wood components before we get them nestled in the brackets and up. I am using an opaque deck stain by Behr. It's the same stuff that we used on the posts for our fence, so it should match. Not only will it give the wood color, but it will help protect it against the elements as well. To apply the stain, I am using my Graco airless sprayer. It's the same one we used when we painted our house. Check the link in the description if you want to see the process of painting our DIY modern house. There are many ways to build pergolas, but we wanted to go with a really sleek and minimalist style to match our contemporary house. The best way to keep the design of a modern pergola minimalist is to avoid overlapping material, but in order to keep it strong, you're gonna need some high quality steel hardware. After a lot of research and looking at several different brands, we decided to go with Zen Pergolas. Not only does Zen Pergolas have the simple black hardware we were looking for, the website was really simple. I didn't have to think too much. I just clicked on photos of what I wanted and they put together a kit. We are currently laying out the location for the base hardware for the posts. They are going to need to be anchored into our concrete foundations. We won't be securing the 4 outer corners quite yet, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. But we can go ahead and get the center 2 plates mounted. All the fasteners that are needed for the wood structure come included in the Zen Pergolas kit, but we did need to buy our concrete anchors separately just because the fasteners will vary depending on your substrate that you're mounting to. We are anchoring our pergola into 4-inch concrete, so we picked up 3/8 inch by 3-inch concrete screw anchors. Once all of our bases are in place, we can mark the location of the holes, move them out of the way, and drill through our concrete.
With the location of the base plates marked on the foundations, I used a hammer drill and a 3/8 inch concrete bit to drill my pilot holes. I then used an impact wrench to drive the 3/8 inch screw anchors, securing the 2 center post bases to their foundations. The Zen Pergolas kit is designed to be used with off-the-shelf dimensional lumber, but luckily will work with custom dimensions as well. We ended up needing to cut a couple of feet off of the east to west running horizontal beams to fit within our design. And since we were using 6x6 posts, cutting the ends off involved using a circular saw plunged at full depth, cutting all the way around, and then following up with a reciprocating saw to trim the last little bit in the middle that the circular saw blade wouldn't reach.
So we brainstormed the different ways to assemble and which was going to be the easiest. Depending on how many people you have to help assemble might change the method that works best for you. If these were 4x4 posts and maybe a little bit smaller, they would be a lot lighter weight. So we would probably build the whole top frame, then set the posts and lift it on top. That's not really practical with a 20-foot by 10-foot structure made out of 6x6. So instead, what we're going to try to do is to set the middle 2 posts and then basically build U-shaped structures on either end out of the outer posts and beams, and then raise those ends up and connect them to the center. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to start attaching our steel corner hardware to the wooden posts and beams.
After checking to make sure the 2 center posts were plumb, we secured them to the post base hardware using the screws provided in the kit. We then used 2 ladders to lift the center beam with the attached hardware on top of the 2 center posts and secured the beam in place using the provided screws. Then, while the outside posts were laying on the floor, leaning away from the center of the pergola, we added the 2 outside north-south running beams to their posts using corner brackets and provided screws.
We just got the center arch up, and now we are going to start bringing up those side arcs as well.
Working one side at a time, we carefully raised one of the post and beam combinations upright, but intentionally kept it scooted several inches out from its final location. While two people held on to the outside posts, we then could lift the east-west beams up into place and carefully work them into the center and outside corner brackets. We then worked together to pull the outside post inward until it was in its final pre-drilled location. I then could secure the two outside post bases using more concrete screw anchors. We repeated the same steps on the other side, lifting the end and sliding the beams into place. After we secured the last two post bases to their concrete foundations, we checked to make sure everything was level, square, and plumb, and ensured every post and beam was safely secured to the hardware using the provided fasteners.
So the outer 6x6 frame of the pergola is totally done. We are now starting to work on the rafters.
I used a circular saw to cut the 2x6 rafters to length, and we secured the rafter hardware on the inside face of the east to west beams. We then could slide the rafters into place and secure them to the brackets. With a few of the leftover pavers, we created a temporary pathway from the house, and our new pergola was done. As you can see, we still have a lot of work to do in the backyard, but at least now I have a starting point for my design. Let me know in the comment section if you'd be interested in a full material list, everything that we use to build the pergola as well as the pavers and foundations.
I love the idea of having two really large steel planters on the back half of the pergola, but big steel planters like this are super expensive. I made these ones from old filing cabinets turned on their side. We just welded on a plate, gave them a fresh coat of paint, and we have fancy planters for like $20.
I'm sharing the link to the exact Zen Pergolas kit that we used in the description box below, so make sure you check that out. If you want to see more about the modern DIY house that we built ourselves, you'll want to watch the whole Building Modern on a Budget series. And if you like other types of DIY content, check out this video as well. Thanks again to Zen Pergolas for sponsoring this video, and thanks for watching.